the edge of light. Let's take 10 breaths. I'd like to point out an irony that if I watched myself watch a video like this where someone said, do some breathing with me, I'd probably roll my eyes. That being said, for anyone that's watching that is rolling their eyes and wondering what's this breathing together about, the only thing that I can suggest is to try it. Just try it once. If you still feel like there's nothing there, then obviously don't do it anymore. But you might find some benefit from it. If it's just a positive sense of like how your body feels, or if it does something to calm you, or anything else that's beneficial, as opposed to just neutral. And even if it's neutral, breathing is always a good idea. So today I want to talk about something that seems to be a pretty current thing with a lot of people becoming more involved in religion. And I don't know, honestly, necessarily about other religions as much as Christianity, just because I'm around it a lot more. And, for a long time, I felt like while I did have an inclination towards God and spiritual things and the soul and all these concepts that are talked about in Christianity, I always felt like the fact that there was church kind of poisoned the well for me, and so it turned me off from the whole thing for a while, and I was just very materialist, and then I came back and I just reorganized a lot of that in how I understand it. I never went back to a church, but I, my understanding of Christ consciousness, and the Bible and what the Bible says, and I'll get into something about the Bible that I think is really powerful, but I wanted to jokingly say that I feel like the church is like spiritual training wheels. And before anyone gets upset, let me explain. What I mean by that is, if you think about riding a bike, yeah, you can just go and get on your bike and ride, but the likelihood that you're going to have, that you're going to fall harder or more often or something is higher, because you don't have the training wheels, that extra support. And I think that for all the flaws that the church might have, and when I say church, I don't mean like the structure, obviously. When you say church, you really mean the people, and people have flaws, people have problems, they have their own issues, and so these important spiritual insights and concepts and parables and ways of being in the world, they get filtered through the limited understandings of people. So that all being said, I have since changed my opinion about these things, because training wheels are valuable, and that's not to say, I don't mean that in a negative way when I say training wheels. I think it's actually very positive, because if you say to somebody like, hey, we're gonna go we're going to go out in the middle of the ocean, no life jacket. You got to swim there. Well, then a lot of people would just say no, flat out no. But you say, well, we're going to go and here's some safety gear and we're going to have a map and we're going to have support and we'll have a radio back to land and all this. And it's like, oh, okay, well, this sounds a little bit, you know, maybe dangerous or maybe uncomfortable, but because of all the support that you're providing, then now I feel comfortable in taking that risk. And I feel like that, and that's not just Christianity, you know, like I said, that's the culture I grew up in, but a lot of these organized religions, I mean, that's really what they're providing. In my opinion, that is of most benefit is this support structure that that helps you to ease into things if you're on the outside. And then when you're very deep into it, like let's say you are a monk, having that support structure takes away a lot of the more mundane responsibilities of life, you know. And I dipped my toe there by doing Vipassana, you know. Just obviously I'm not comparing that to like a 20-year monastery experience. These are, you know, a few 10-day stints. So I'm not trying to say that, but it does make a big difference, because I would say that in only 10 days, taking a lot of like the responsibility to cook and clean off the table, you know, just for 10 days is profound. So I can only imagine that someone, if they felt that was their calling to do, you know, either like a month or 3 months, a year, or a whole lifetime, the level of focus that you could achieve in that kind of scenario, if that was really what you wanted, it would be, yeah, I mean, it's unthinkable to me. I can't even like conceive of what would that be like. Now, I did at one point have this is just a side note, is that when I was in college, I was on the cusp of a decision that would have completely altered my life. Who knows how it would have turned out, but I felt, and at that time, you know, I was still going to college and, you know, doing, you know, drinking on the weekends and all that, and, you know, all various standard college things, but I was also meditating like 2 or 3 hours a day. And I lived in an apartment by myself, no TV, no internet. And so I'd go to school and I'd go out and do things socially, but then I'd spend a lot of time in my apartment by myself, meditating and reading. And I thought, oh my God, like I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what my life is supposed to be about. And I just thought to myself, if I go into the world as you know, I eventually did as an engineer, then I could always leave that and go be a monk somewhere, live a very modest lifestyle in the hills. I don't know. But if I go do that first, and it's not to my liking, then going back into the world would be extraordinarily difficult. So it was a practical decision. Now, what ended up happening, you know, if you haven't been able to kind of piece together little bits I put about my life in these videos, but what ended up happening was I found the middle ground, you know, finding this balance between taking care of, you know, my day-to-day responsibilities, paying the bills, being a good husband, being a good father, and making time to ensure that my inner world is at peace and that I'm in alignment with my calling. Now, this is a whole nother conversation, but I would say my calling is to do this kind of, um, is just to share, all the healing work that I've been through with people, because it's a very gratifying experience. Um, Through giving talks and specifically in breath work, just because it's so exciting, it's so much fun. Um, I love to share that. So, but back to the church thing. So I think um, it's just been a really interesting thing to watch all these people flock back to this structure because they're kind of, as in the last few decades, it seems like there's been like cracks in the foundation of society. There's just been a lot of problems coming up, and to say that religion is going to solve it, I'm not going to go there. That's a very bold statement, so I'm not going to say that, and I don't think that that's really fair to say either. But the correlation is strong, and it's not that church is going to solve people's problems. It's that people are despondent. A lot of people don't have a sense of purpose, and I think that comes from a lack of one mentorship, eldership, rites of passage, and I don't know how that all came to be. People just getting busy with their own stuff and decided to stop really caring or passing on values, and so that's what I'm kind of getting at is like these larger institutions, that's basically their purpose, is to carry on these values and structures for people that don't find it in their home or their local communities, like schools or whatever, that they can go to these enduring institutions to get some guidance and get that as a way, to start learning about various things that are going to be helpful for them as an adult. So that leads me to another thing that I wanted to talk about, which is rites of passage. And I'm a massive fan of the concept, and I think that if I were to say, why is the world the way it is, and I'm not necessarily even criticizing. I think that we, as a society, as a civilization, we are very advanced. I'm not saying that we were better off 100 years ago. People are in a way a lot safer. People, well, these things are tricky because does seem to be a little bit of a roll off. The potential to be safer and healthier and happier is here. Now, do people take advantage of that? In my opinion, most don't. But in Western countries, the option is there, as opposed to some time ago when there was, fascism and despotism and monarchies, and people just didn't have any rights. Nobody cared how you felt about anything. You just existed in a lot of ways. And if someone was unhappy about you, it was like, it was very lawless times until recently. People just go missing, or there'd be hysteria, like the witch trials or something crazy like that, or religious, unfortunately, religious hysteria. So my theory on this is that the passing down of responsibilities is one of the fundamental problems with why society seems to have degraded a bit, and I'm looking at criticisms like people just being kind of selfish, greedy, jealous, and and just generally unhappy, like, the younger generation's just being like directionless. And so when I look at rites of passage being the process of older, wise generations initiating, and that's their responsibility too. You can't say like, oh, these kids, they never grew up because they refuse the rites of passage. No, this is a failure on both sides. And in fact, I would say it's more a failure on the older side because it's their job to initiate. I mean, what do the kids know? So, I mean, maybe I'm just saying that as I'm on the younger half, but it is what it is. So that lack of effort to initiate, or that slow decline of the process of rites of passage, I don't know how it happened necessarily, just went out of style. But then you have all these people coming into money and power and physical prowess, all these things, and no real direction, no real sense of purpose. And I think that's the tragedy. That's where all these people coming into their peak and not having any real sense of what to do with it. And so we, when you don't have any real guidance, then you kind of guide yourself, and a lot of times it's just bumbling around. I mean, I felt that way for sure. I think that one of the reasons why I'm passionate about doing a lot of I wouldn't call myself a coach, but somewhat of a mentorship and guidance, is because I had a hard time, I just had a really hard time, growing up and through my 20s, and just not having any real guidance, and I you never really waste time, but it wasn't effective. We'll say that it wasn't an effective use of time, and I spent an enormous amount of resources reinventing wheels. And so I'd like to be able to leapfrog anybody who's interested. And, why make the same mistakes I did? Unless you absolutely find it necessary, and some people do, I would probably be one of those. I need to get burned myself before I can acknowledge that something is hot. But that's me. I mean, I hope that's not everybody, but we'll see. But I hope that I can tell somebody, I hurt myself doing this, and you can try it if you need to, but also I'm just going to tell you how it's going to turn out right now, and maybe you can save some time and headache. Yeah, I think that the rites of passage need to be brought back, and so I had to basically do that to myself. I started putting myself through very intense physical experiences, and then I think I talked about it before, but I would do these really long hikes in the mountains, a couple days, and then just to make it particularly difficult, we do it in the winter, and then doing fasting and doing other types of really intense physical cleansing, drinking salt water. Please don't do that. If you're interested, you can send me a message. But that's something that I did it on my own, and that was not smart. There's a lot of ways that can go wrong, and so if you are interested, we'll talk about it. And then doing other rites of passage with plant medicine and meditation. Acknowledging to myself that certain childish behaviors, being selfish and well, actually, like, I mean, that's really the crux of it in my case. It's just a lot of selfish, myopic behavior, um, and just seeing like how that's not getting me where I want to go in life, and so just really grinding away at these behaviors and where do they come from, and making amends to that effect. Um, and something else that I think, so I have a daughter, and I talked to my wife about this because um, I have various ideas about how our child will be initiated into womanhood, and of course, you could kind of say, well, it's a woman, and women have their cycle, and that's an initiation. Like, yes and no. I mean, that happens obviously for most women, I'll say, um, but there's also a lot of women that go well into their life and never actually become grown-ups. Just because you have the body of a grown-up, like a lot of people do, doesn't mean that you have acknowledged the rights and responsibilities and accountability of being a grown-up. So um, but the reason why I bring up my daughter is because um, I joke with my wife about how, okay, when it's time, I'm going to give her a knife and a bottle of water, drop her off in the woods, and come back in 3 days, and and she always get mad at me, and I'm mostly joking. Of course, I would give her much more preparation than that. Like, I don't think that it's too much to ask to have a teenager survive for 3 days. Um, I think that's very doable, and it's not even about survival. It's about spending the time alone with your thoughts. It's really more about that, um, and building the confidence and these things. But the the big issue, and again, why am I talking about my daughter specifically, is that I don't think that it's necessarily appropriate for men to initiate women. I think that what makes way more sense is that my wife, being a woman, and knowing what she needs or needed at the time to grow into her womanhood and all that, I think that makes way more sense for her to craft the process by which our daughter goes through a rite of passage experience. And then by that same note, we have a son, then I would be primarily responsible. And of course, everything is collaborative. I will support whatever she's doing, and I assume she'll support me. Um, but being the man, I have more understanding of what men need, and the logic obviously follows that she will have a greater understanding of what our daughter needs, and have a greater understanding of effective ways of going about that. Getting that message through of, you're not a child anymore. You're a woman, and this is what's expected of you, and this is this is the responsibilities that you have now. So, yeah, I just, I feel really passionate about rites of passage because I just think that it's such a tragedy, like I said, that so many young folks are just kind of wandering in their lives, and it's tough because I still do mentor actively one guy, but passively a few younger folks that once they get to a certain age, this kind of like um, it's not weakness necessarily, but it's that sense of I can't do anything. Helpless maybe is a better way of, but that sense of ineffectiveness, like I don't want to try because I don't know where I'm going, and I don't see how this is going to work. And again, this goes back to like these enduring institutional structures. It's like you don't need to know how it's going to work. All you need to do is trust me. I've been there. I've gone through it. I know something might not make sense right now, but you just got to trust the process. And I will say, to be fair, certain institutions have degraded that sense of trust from the community, and that's really unfortunate, obviously. Um, but it still serves a crucial role in society, and I think can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So um, yeah, I think if people are interested in going through more rites of passage work, either for themselves or their children, that would be a really interesting conversation to have, and I would welcome it. So, all right, take care of yourselves. Love you.